furious. He stomped down the walk to the house and slammed the garden gate behind him as he went.
There's no reason to be slamming gates, Eli.
His father called behind him.
This is just the way it's going to be.
Eli fumed.
This is just the way it's going to be.
He mimicked his dad's words as he went down the street.
Well, that's not the way it's going to be. I'm going to get what I want now.
See, Eli had just asked his dad for a new pair of football boots. And not just any boots, but the Adidas Predator Eternal class. They were top of the line, and Eli had decided that he deserved them. He was a really good player, and the boots he had gotten at the beginning of the season were just no longer good enough. But his dad didn't understand. He didn't get how important it was for Eli to have these new boots. He had said no. Dad said that his old boots were still perfectly good, and if he wanted the 300-pound pair, he could earn the money to pay for them himself. Eli fumed some more. Who did he think he was anyway? Eli stopped as he came to the end of the street, and he looked around. His grandpa's place was just a little ways further along. Eli then had a brilliant idea. He'd go and ask Grandpa to buy him the boots. Grandpa always had Eli's best interests at heart, and more importantly, Grandpa never said no. And that is just what he did. Eli didn't mention to his grandpa that his dad had said he had to earn the money for the boots himself. It wasn't as if he lied, he reasoned to himself. Grandpa hadn't specifically asked him if Dad had said no. Eli just hadn't offered him the information. And anyway, Grandpa had been very sad in recent months because his father had just passed away. Grandpa said he always wanted to have a closer relationship with his father, but that he had been a very untrusting person, probably because he had spent 4 years in a concentration camp during the war. Great-grandpa had never spoken about it, not really, but he had always had an air of anger about him, as if he had never really gotten over the trauma. Eli knew that he had been speaking to the pastor about it before his death. When Eli asked Grandpa if they could go football boot shopping, Grandpa was overjoyed to say yes. Eli steered him to the Adidas Predator Eternal class, and Grandpa gulped as he paid the 300 pounds for them. Then Grandpa took Eli back home. Eli waved as Grandpa pulled away from the curb, and he snuck inside with the box under his arm. He hustled up to his room and hid the box away, feeling triumphant for having found a way around his dad's edict. He then got his homework out and began to work on it. After about an hour, he heard the front door open and his father bellowed his name.
Eli!
Eli could hear his mother's voice asking what was wrong, and another voice, which might have been his grandpa's.
Eli!
His father shouted again.
You come down here right now!
Eli considered just pretending he wasn't home, but if his dad came upstairs looking for him, he'd be in even more trouble. He opened his bedroom door and came down the stairs.
Yes, Dad?
He said innocently. His dad's eyes narrowed.
Where are the football boots, Eli?
Eli stood very still and looked surprised.
What did you think?
His dad went on.
That adults don't talk to one another? Your grandfather has told me that you went to him behind my back and got him to buy you those boots. What did I say about it?
Eli stalled. He figured he'd have a lot more time before his dad found out, and by then he would have come up with a good way he could have raised the money himself. His grandpa stepped forward.
Eli, what exactly did your dad say to you about the boots? Stay out of this, Dad.
Eli's dad snapped.
This wouldn't have happened if you would say no once in a while, or if you thought for just one moment to ask me if I wanted my son to have an expensive pair of football boots.
Eli gulped.
But Dad,
He said,
you were being completely unreasonable. You didn't see how much I needed those boots. I'm the best player on the team. I deserve them.
Eli's grandpa then did something that he had never, ever done in all Eli's life. He looked disappointed.
Eli,
he said slowly.
are you saying that your dad told you that you couldn't have the boots?
Eli replied.
No. He said he wouldn't buy them for me and I had to earn the money myself. He never actually said I couldn't have them.
Eli's mom stepped in at that moment. So instead of honoring your father, you went behind his back to your grandfather? You can't play people against each other that way, Eli. It isn't right. His dad turned toward him.
Go get the boots right now.
Eli had no choice but to go upstairs and get the box from under his bed. He took them back down and handed them to his dad, who in turn handed them to Grandpa and said,
No more, Dad. You will no longer buy Eli anything that he asks for without checking with me.
Grandpa looked upset and ashamed as he took the box.
I apologize.
He said,
I should have checked with you as soon as I saw the cost. I hope you can forgive me.
Well, Eli felt horrible. His grandpa hadn't yelled at him at all, even though he probably deserved it. He took all the responsibility on himself.
Go upstairs, Eli.
His father said in a weary voice.
We will deal with this as soon as I have calmed down a little bit.
Eli went upstairs and sat at his desk. He put his head on his hands and did what he should have done all along. He prayed.
Dear God, I feel terrible. I was really mad at Dad and I didn't think that I might be getting Grandpa into trouble. I didn't mean to do that. Please help me to know what I can do to fix all that I've done.
And with that, Eli began to cry. Eli didn't know how long he had been sitting at his desk when his dad came up to talk to him. He just knew that he was miserable. He had gotten the one person who was always on his side in trouble, and he had completely dishonored his dad. Neither of those things was okay, and his heart was really hurting. Dad sat on the bed and asked Eli to turn around and look at him. Eli didn't really want to because he had been crying and didn't want his dad to see, but Dad was quietly insistent. Eli turned around and said,
I'm sorry, Dad.
Dad said,
What are you sorry for, Eli? What you did or that you got caught?
Both.
Eli said honestly.
I didn't see past my anger at you saying no, and I just reacted. That wasn't okay. God has asked me to honor you, and I didn't. And then I got Grandpa into trouble with you, which I wouldn't ever have wanted to do.
Eli hung his head.
Son,
His dad began.
I have always envied your relationship with my father. I always wanted to be as close with him and my grandfather, but that's not how it worked out. I hold responsibility for that, and I will work on it. However, when I tell you something, it's because I want you to learn something. Earning your own money to buy things will help you appreciate things more. I can see that now, Dad. I shouldn't have let my anger control my actions. I'm super sorry.
Eli began to cry silently again.
I can see you are truly sorry, Eli.
His dad said.
Jesus said, Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. What Jesus was saying to his friends was, when we agree with God about how bad our sin is, saying we're sorry, and asking his help and power to walk away from it, Jesus promises comfort from the Holy Spirit.
Eli thought about what his dad had said.
I already told Jesus I was sorry and asked him to help me fix it. I will ask him to help me never to do it again. I never meant to make you feel bad, Dad, or to have you and Grandpa fight. I just couldn't see beyond what I wanted.
Eli's dad smiled and gave him a hug.
Your grandpa is going to return the football boots, Eli, but he wants all of us to go and get a meal together in a week after you get done with your grounding. That seems fair,
Eli replied.
Thanks, Dad.
As Eli's dad left the room, Eli did indeed pray again and ask Jesus to help him to be better at doing the right thing.